It doesn't matter. You can round to wherever you want to. I think in my notes I did the tenths, but again, it doesn't matter. You can round to wherever. On the skills check yesterday, though, that was a little icy. I thought it would be easier than what it was, so I am going to probably go back and revisit that. Tomorrow, I might just do like an 8.1 review. I really haven't figured it out yet, if I'm honest with you. Because the amount of people who did not do well was a little alarming. So I did put those in. Is there anybody that was absent yesterday? Okay, so I'll pass those back too. All right, so we got angle A is 10 degrees, and then we have little a is also 10, and this is 5. So let's start off by finding this angle. See what you get. So angle B, you should have the inverse sine of, and then this fraction, 5 sine 10 over 10. So let me verify my numbers. Okay, so I got 4.98, which is essentially just 5. Who got a 5 degrees? All right, so B is 5. Okay, so now let's go ahead. So that means that we have angle A is 10. And then I have B is 5. So what is C? 165. All right, so now let's find C, little c. Okay, so then that's going to give us the sine of 10 over 10 equals the sine of C, which is 165 over lowercase c. Okay, so I got 14.9. Okay, so now we have solved our triangle. So we have at least one triangle. So now let's see if we have 2. So angle A is still going to be 10 because that was what they provided us. And what would B sub 2 equal? 175, right? Because you have to take whatever you got here, which is 5. If you take 180 minus 5, then we get that B2 is 175. So with that information, with those 2 angles that we have, is it possible to have a third triangle? No. Because those 2 angles alone add to more than 180. So this is not going to work. So there is no second triangle. We only have 1 triangle. And that is the ambiguous case. 1 triangle. Can't have 2. All right, so let's go ahead and keep moving forward a little bit. Yeah, gotta keep pushing. So let's go ahead and look at this next example where we have to, again, solve the triangle, which means find everything we don't know. So we have triangle HJK. H is 34. Little j is 7. Little k is 10. So with that information, can we do the law signs? Do we have a pair? Yeah. And I don't have enough information the way it's set up to find J or K. All right, so when you see a situation like this, law of cosine, we use law of cosine for triangles that we have all 3 sides for and no angles, or side angle side. That's when we use the law of cosine. If you don't have an opposite pair. So if you don't have an opposite pair, meaning an angle side pair, then this is where we use the law of cosine. So I know this looks confusing, but it's really not, because when you look at it, the way I remember law of cosines is that the formulas, and we just wrote it all 3 different ways. But this is what you need to know. Whatever you start with, you have to end with, right? So do you notice how I started with a little a and I ended with a big A? In all 3 of these scenarios, whatever I started with, if I start with B, I have to end with B. If I start with C, I have to end with C. In the middle, it is the Pythagorean theorem. So it's a squared plus b squared. A squared equals b squared plus c squared, right? And then you subtract 2 times the 2 sides you don't know and multiply it by the cosine. So let's practice setting up the law of cosine, and then we'll end there. So let's finish this triangle out that we just drew. So I'm going to refill in this information. So I have H, J, K. H is 34. Oh, going back to this too. So homework 14 is not due until the Thursday we come back from spring break. And if you check the Canvas page, I did move some stuff around. Our test for chapter 8 moved up 2 days because we will finish chapter 8 that week we come back. We'll probably be finished with it on Thursday because there's not a lot to cover. And then you'll get your study guide on that Wednesday or Thursday, and then take the test the following Tuesday. So I did change the calendar, so just be aware of that. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish this out. Little j is 7, and little k is 10. So with this information that we have to start by finding the side opposite of the angle we know. So that means we're going to find little h. All right, so I'm going to write out the law of cosine using the letters that we have in this situation. So that would be h squared equals the other two sides. And what other two letters do we have?
J squared and K squared.
Yep, J squared and K squared. And then it's minus 2 times those two sides that we know, JK. And then it's the cosine of angle H. So you see how whatever I started with, if I started with an H, I ended with an H. So now at this point, let's just go ahead and substitute in our numbers. So little j is 7. Little k is 10. Minus 2 times 7 times 10 times the cosine of 34. And you're actually going to take the square root of that number. So you can actually type this in one step, just like that. Under the square root, because it's h squared.
Yeah.
So we have to take the square root of that number. Yep, I got 5.7. I was looking for my answer, sorry, because I wrote it kind of messy. All right, so we have little h is 5.7. And let me just write above. So in order to solve the triangle, we need to know what little h is. What we just figured out is 5.7. We also need to figure out what is the measure of angle J. And then we need to find the measure of angle K. All right, so we got our 5.7. So now we need to figure out what we want to find next, J or K. I'm going to pick J because it comes first in the alphabet. No reason, just because it comes first. All right, so using the law of cosine to find an angle is a little bit different, okay? Because we can't just type it in our calculator. If we're trying to find little h or any side, we could just type the whole thing in our calculator, let the calculator do the work. But to find an angle, we have to do a little bit of solving. All right, so let's go ahead and set it up. Now I'm gonna write it out again because I wanna make sure you all are comfortable with the law of cosine. So I'm gonna find little j, which means that I'm gonna have j squared, it's gonna come first now. And that's gonna equal, not little j, I'm gonna find big J. So if I'm trying to find big J, I need to start with the law of cosine, I need to start with little j. And then what are the other two sides? H squared and K squared. And then it's minus 2 times those two sides. So minus 2HK times the cosine of angle J. All right, so now that we have our equation set up, let's start putting in our numbers. So little j is 7. We figured out that little h was 5.7 plus little k, which is 10, minus 2 times 5.7 times 10, and we're going to end with the cosine of j. All right, so this one again, it's a little bit different because you can't put this in our calculator. So what you want to do, what you don't want to do, okay, and this is the mistake that students have made, is try to put this whole thing in their calculator in one step and shrink that right side down. You can't do that, all right, because it doesn't follow order of operations. Anything you do in any math class, PEMDAS is, you cannot break PEMDAS, okay? So because of this subtraction sign, we actually have to break this apart. Now you do need to figure out what this number is. So let's figure out what is 5.7 squared plus 10 squared. And then also let's figure out what this number is. But these two numbers, we cannot, because of that subtraction sign, we have to keep them separate. Okay, so let's figure out in our calculator We know 49, 7 squared is 49. I don't know what that is, so let me. Did you get 132.95?
I got 49.
Oh, okay, that's because I rounded different. When I did it, I rounded to the hundreds place. So my answer is a little different. Okay, yep. So I'm not gonna round it, I'm just gonna write the whole thing, 132.49. Minus, now let's take 2 times 5.7 times 10. And you should get 114 times the cosine of J. Now, because this is we gotta follow order of operations, which means we did our parentheses, we don't have any exponents, well, we already did our exponents. So now we actually gotta start from the bottom, we gotta start by adding or subtracting. So whenever you're solving, we start at the bottom of the ladder. So we need to subtract this number first. You have to subtract this 132 from both sides. It's 132.49. And then you have to divide by the negative 114. Okay, so we're gonna take 49 minus 132.49, which gives you negative 83.49 equals negative 114 times the cosine of J. And then we're going to divide both sides by negative 114. Yeah. So what you're actually going to end up having is this fraction equals the cosine of J. So that means that J is going to equal the inverse cosine of that fraction. So go ahead and type that in your calculator. Type in the inverse cosine I got 42.9. Who got 42.9? So J equals 42.9. Retype it in your calculator. Yeah, you probably just didn't hit a button. So now I know angle J is 42.9. And the easiest thing to find, now that we know that, is angle K. And how will we find angle K? Triangle sum, right? So in your calculator, take 180 minus 34 minus 42.9. And you should get 103.1. And that's the law of cosine. So we will pick up on that. I just wanted to introduce it to you since we had the time. Again, I'm giving extra credit for homework 12 tomorrow. If it's turned in during class, I'm going to pass back your skills check.